hard to imagine, but there was a day when getting behind the wheel meant just one thing. We're talking about driving, but fast forward more than a century, and that one thing seems to have turned into about 100, from puckering up in the rear view to shooting off a text or two. In short, it seems driving has taken a backseat to just about everything else in life. And the reality is the consequences.
I flipped in the air and landed on the concrete.
Are becoming more and more real.
I looked over and I seen my leg and I just started screaming. I could see like my bones sticking out. I could see everything. The pain was excruciating. It was really bad. I could feel my blood. It was like boiling.
18-year-old Carrie Houston nearly lost her life that night, and her leg is still in jeopardy, nearly severed by a man allegedly drinking, driving, and texting.
I just barely got hit by a car, you know, and they didn't know it, and yeah. It was really emotional, really traumatic.
In a split second, Carrie's life changed. A 2-word text, and she is now another statistic. Numbers show more than 1,200 people are injured every single day because of distracted driving. Another 15 are killed. Do the math, and the National Safety Council estimates every 24 seconds there is a cell phone-related accident. And if you're finding that hard to believe, just take a look at what we found. KSL spent 5 days driving up and down the Wasatch Front, and we didn't have to look hard to pick out the distractions. There was talking, there was reading, there was primping, there was eating. We followed this woman engaged in some major multitasking along I-15, trying to find a balance between lunch, fiddling with her phone, getting a good read in, and finally breaking out the pen to add a few words.
They seem to lose regard for everything else going on around them.
Ian Peterson's been driving a truck for about 14 years now and says he has seen and heard it all. Drivers changing clothes, eating a bowl of cereal, heating up the romance, and get this.
People changing who the driver of the car is while they're going down the road.
All that while clipping along at freeway speeds. But the reality is that's really not the norm. In our investigation, the one thing that over and over caught our eyes is that many drivers are not using theirs. Chatting it up on her phone, this driver in Salt Lake repeatedly went hands-free from the steering wheel at one time for 11 seconds straight. In Davis County, we caught this car straddling the line, eventually fading into the lane of another car. A closer look here, and the reason becomes obvious. Eyes on phone, phone in hands, and for 22 seconds, it is still unclear how she was even steering it. And we're not done. How'd you like to be the passenger in this car? For more than a minute, he cleans off a pair of sunglasses, plays with the dash, and seems to be involved in a pretty big conversation with the person next to him. Not once did we see his hands touch the wheel. All right, so to put it into perspective, look at the national numbers, and 80% of all accidents out there are the result of some form of distraction. And whether it's talking or texting, studies show it is more dangerous than drinking and driving.
And then at what point do you cross over to saying someone needs to do jail for this before they kill someone? And that is a tough call.
Scott Fisher is a Salt Lake City prosecutor and says Utah is one of the toughest anti-texting laws in the country. But the penalties still lag behind driving drunk. First-time DUI will get you mandatory jail time and a pretty hefty fine. But for texters behind the wheel, likely no jail and likely a smaller fine.
A DUI is treated more serious than texting and driving. Is that true?
Oh, yes. A DUI is treated much more seriously than texting and driving right now.
So does that need to change?
I think there might be an argument that maybe it does.
Take your eyes off the road just to say ha-ha to your wife.
And Carrie Houston would likely agree. She's already had 5 surgeries in 2 short weeks.
Sometimes I get angry, and sometimes I get really emotional about it.
And still has a long, long way to go. Never in a million years did Carrie believe that she would become a statistic. But the truth is,
Taking your eyes off the road for 2 seconds, that's why this happened to me.
most of us probably don't either. Welcome back. Here's a question for you. Do you believe that you can multitask while driving? Last night we showed you just how serious distractions are here on Utah roads. And tonight we do a couple of things. One, we put drivers to the test. And two, we spoke with a woman who is living with the anguish that can be attached to distracted driving. All this in tonight's Ian Report. It was July 8th, 2010.
I just wasn't paying attention. He was on a moped and I just didn't see him.
And the woman inside this car,
His body was just kind of sprawled out on the ground.
made a careless mistake. Angie Ratliff says that she was driving distracted, not by talking, texting, or the radio, but rather
I was too busy thinking about projects that I had at work.
distracted by her thoughts, tragically killing a man on her way to work.
I've never felt so depressed and so ashamed.
Every day, thousands of drivers on Utah roads are distracted by something. There's billboards and signage, weird cars and decals, but what happens inside the car is often the most dangerous. According to an unscientific raw data poll for KSL, nearly 30% of drivers here in Utah have been in an accident because of distracted driving. Talking on the phone and eating are extremely popular, but the percentage of drivers surfing the net and texting are becoming more common. You've surfed the net while you've been driving?
I have.
You think there is such a thing as safe texting while driving?
No, not safe, but I don't know. I'm safer than most, I would say.
Cameras are rolling.
So with that, we decided to put 4 drivers to the test: a closed course, a couple of cars, and a cell phone. I would send out the texts as they would read and respond. The rules are this: simply stay in your lane and drive as though the car to the left of you
Alright, when you see that car stop, bring your car to a stop as quick as you can.
is directly in front of you. The commentary:
Cutting the corners again. She's not even in her lane. He keeps getting closer and closer to the car in front of him.
well, that's courtesy of Highway Patrol. So here's what we found: crossing lines, fluctuating speeds, delayed reactions. And if this were the real deal, these drivers would be slammed into the trunk of the car in front of them.
I wasn't expecting him to stop so quick.
I was going over the line.
I would have rear-ended him. I would have messed up my car and hurt the person in front of me for sure.
That's subject number 4, Parker Smith, and he probably failed the worst, not just on the closed course,
Yeah, you can see it's a pretty big crack right here and down
but while texting on the real roads as well.
Yeah.
You think you'll still text and drive?
I don't know. It's almost like an addiction. And you would think that looking at that every day would be like, hey, stupid, you know, don't do it. But you end up doing it anyway.
And that in itself has got to make you wonder if drivers truly understand the dangers of driving distracted, even been involved in an accident because of it. What does it take to stop?
How often do you think about it?
Every day. Every day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him.
It's been 2.5 years, but Angie has struggled to move on. And though she has found some solace in the birth of her baby boy, that joy is often interrupted by the knowledge of what she has taken away. It is haunting, it is painful, and the only redemption she can find from that tragic morning
It's amazing what your story does to help people change how they drive.
is that others will change because of her mistake. And hopefully that's the case. Here's something that may put some things into perspective for you as well. In just 3 seconds of taking your eyes off of the road at freeway speeds, you cover the length of a football field. That's a lot of distance to not know what's actually going on in front of you. Now, the last 2 nights, our investigations have been part of KSL's commitment to safe driving and our Road to Zero Fatalities campaign. There's more information on our website. That's KSL.com.
Well, we heard that report. It's so tempting to do.
Yeah,
It
we're
is very
our own
tempting.
worst enemies, and yet there's all the reasons right in front of us to
And we
stop.
all think, like you heard, I mean, he even failed. He failed in real life. He failed
his
on the
own
crash
car.
course. And he said, you know what?
Yeah.
It's hard for me to still not text and drive.
Yeah.
So